History whispers to us through battlefields. Rusting relics tell tales of struggle, of victory, and of shattering defeat. In the heart of America, a bloody conflict once split the nation, brother against brother. The American Civil War, a war that would test the very ideals upon which a country was built. And at its heart, the Confederacy, bold in their rebellion yet ultimately doomed. We ask ourselves the question echoing through the decades: why did the Confederates lose? This isn't simply a study of distant history. The shadow of this war stretches long. The struggle for freedom, for what defines a nation, these are battles fought again and again, even today. But to grasp the echoes, we must go back to the source. Where did the strength of the Confederacy falter? Where did their grand hopes turn to bitter dust? Let's journey back to those turbulent years, the 1860s, and unravel the threads of this fateful question. It's tempting to view the Southern cause as a single unyielding force. But behind Robert E. Lee's stoic command and Jefferson Davis's fiery speeches was a Confederacy riven with internal divides. The wealthy plantation owners wielded immense power, their fortunes resting on the labor of millions of enslaved people. Yet poorer white farmers, the backbone of the Confederate Army, had far less to lose and even less to gain if the status quo remained unchallenged. It's these contradictions, the disparity between the South's elite and its common soldiers, that laid the groundwork for the internal strife that would plague the Confederacy throughout the war. The belief in states' rights, so central to their rebellion, became a double-edged sword. While rallying the troops initially, it fueled constant power struggles between individual states and the central government in Richmond. Each state jealously guarded its resources, often refusing to contribute vital supplies to the overall war effort if it threatened their own local needs. This stubborn insistence on independence hindered the Confederacy's ability to fight as a truly united force, sowing the seeds of resentment and fracturing the chain of command. The Southern economy, built on the lucrative but inflexible system of cotton production and slave labor, also carried within it the seeds of its own destruction. The reliance on agriculture left them severely lacking in manufacturing prowess, unable to keep pace with the North's rapidly expanding industrial might. This would become increasingly apparent as the war dragged on, and vital supplies of ammunition, medical equipment, and even basic necessities dwindled to dangerously low levels. It's this fractured foundation, the clash of social classes, rigid state loyalties, and the economic dependence on an inhumane and unsustainable system, that lies at the heart of why the Confederacy couldn't win. The Confederacy's dream of a united South fractured from the start. The fiery rhetoric of secession masked simmering tensions. Border states like Kentucky and Missouri, torn between loyalty and a resentment of Northern dominance, became battlegrounds within a battleground. This internal conflict bled into military strategy, hindering a cohesive national defense. The North, by contrast, mobilized with terrifying efficiency. By 1862, the Morrill Land Grant Act had supercharged Northern industry, churning out weapons and supplies at a rate the war-torn South couldn't match. Remember Antietam in 1862? Lee's audacious Maryland invasion, initially a gamble for a decisive victory, became a bloody stalemate that exposed the Confederacy's dwindling manpower and logistical weaknesses. Meanwhile, the South's dependence on a slave-based economy proved a crippling Achilles heel. Cotton may have been king, but without a diversified industrial base, the Confederacy struggled to produce vital war materials. Their rickety railroads, often built and maintained by enslaved labor, were easily disrupted by Union raids. By 1863, with the Union Navy enforcing a relentless blockade, Confederate ports lay choked. Quinine, crucial for treating malaria, became a ghost on pharmacy shelves. Even basic foodstuffs grew scarce, a grim testament to the South's over-reliance on a single, morally reprehensible and ultimately unsustainable economic system. General William Tecumseh Sherman's 1864 march through Georgia laid bare the Confederacy's economic fragility in a brutal display of total war. His scorched earth tactics not only destroyed vital infrastructure but shattered Southern morale. Desertion rates skyrocketed as soldiers, many yeoman farmers, saw their families facing starvation back home. The Confederacy, built on the backs of the enslaved, was slowly being strangled by its own internal contradictions. The forced labor system, which the Confederacy claimed to be defending, ironically became a major factor in its downfall. The Confederacy's leadership, for all their courage and battlefield acumen, also played a part in the unraveling. President Jefferson Davis, a skilled politician, struggled to delegate effectively and clashed with brilliant but temperamental generals like Robert E. Lee. Strategic blunders, like Pickett's charge at Gettysburg in 1863, cost the Confederacy dearly in terms of manpower and morale. Lee, a brilliant tactician, may have been a better soldier than a strategist, failing to grasp the war's evolving nature and the North's growing industrial might. In the end, the Confederacy's defeat was a culmination of these factors, a tragic symphony of lost opportunities, flawed strategy, and a fundamental misunderstanding of the changing tides of war and society. Military might, economic disparity, internal dissent, and flawed leadership all chipped away at their dream of a separate nation built on the backs of enslaved people. Theirs is a story that echoes through history, a cautionary tale of how deeply held beliefs, however strong, can crumble when not built on a foundation of justice and a recognition of the evolving world. The smoke of the Civil War cleared over 150 years ago, but the Confederacy's defeat isn't relegated to dusty textbooks. The conflict's legacy shapes the American South even today. Witness the continuing debates over Confederate statues, symbols that for some celebrate heritage and for others a grim testament to racism and oppression. The economic divide between the industrialized North and the more agrarian South, though lessened, still exists. The struggle for racial equality, so heartbreakingly central to the Civil War, continues to define the American experience. Perhaps the Confederacy's most enduring lesson is the fragility of nations built on division. Their fight for a states' rights, fueled by an immoral cause, became a recipe for internal collapse. This is a cautionary tale for our modern world, where the divisive rhetoric of us versus them still holds sway and where the fight for a truly just society is far from won. So, why did the Confederacy lose? It's a question that demands thoughtful analysis and reflection. Yet its value lies not in the simple answer, but in the way it forces us to grapple with the difficult truths about our past, truths that shape the world we live in today. If these stories and the complexities that they expose fascinate you, please do subscribe to learn more.